welcome to the hard sell, where the stick in the swill-bucket rattles back. Okay, this is one of those episodes that's going to take some explaining, even before we get round to the adverts themselves. I want to thank Kepler for bringing this to my attention incidentally, and you can contact me via the form on bobthefish.org.uk if you find anything interesting. Today, we're looking at BMTV. No, not GMTV. BMTV. There it is. What the hell is it? Well, get comfy. BMTV is British medical television, and it dates back to some point in the early to mid-80s. This was the beginning of home video, when VCRs and Betamax were spreading across the landscape and opening up new possibilities for mass communication. BMTV was an attempt at seizing those opportunities. It was essentially a video club for medical professionals, particularly GPs. Subscribers received a new 90-minute videotape every month that essentially amounted to a super-condensed television station, complete with programming. Advice, case studies, the latest GP-relevant news and views, educational programming for GP training, even a Diagnose This Patient quiz.
The quiz this month featured a 64-year-old lady with motor neurone disease, which had caused a spastic tetraparesis with lower motor neurone signs in all four limbs with fasciculation.
Quite a neat idea, really. Another technological advance over the course of the 80s was in encryption. Standards like video cipher and video crypt emerged, with the former being largely the standard by 1986. So BMTV got in commendably early, all things considered, making a deal with the BBC to broadcast their programming post-closedown, unbilled and scrambled on BBC 1 and 2 from 1988. Or 89. No one's quite sure when it was started, because it was unbilled. The aim was to start in May 1988, but it probably wasn't then. By the end of that year, however, Philips was manufacturing the descramblers and doctors were signing up, reaching 1,200 by February 1989. The BBC were amenable to helping them out because they'd been interested in the possibilities of scrambling for a while, particularly of launching a subscription service of some sort. They ran a few engineering tests in 1987, consisting of scrambled transmissions of God alone knows what, using the French discretons system, identifiable from the fact that it simply shifted the lines about, so it was still barely possible to see what the programme was. You just couldn't watch it without going mad. As you can see, it worked. So when BMTV came knocking, it was good timing. So anyone who set up their VCR for the late-night movie or night court and then left it running overnight could be surprised, should their curiosity have led them to check the latter part of their recording, to see the test card suddenly vanish and be replaced with a trembling, fuzz-obscured but entirely unfamiliar logo, followed by several equally low-resolution suited men talking about who knows what in apparent silence. Unless, of course, they were medical professionals subscribed to the new service, with a special magic box that not only unscrambled the picture and sound, but set the VCR for you.
In order to receive BMTV's important new daily news and information service for doctors, you will need a direct television receiver, which will decode our scrambled transmission and automatically switch your video to record each day's programme. Please apply now for your receiver, which is included in an annual subscription to the new service at £40 per year. If you don't have a video,
then how the hell are you watching this in the first place? But it continues.
Or would like to replace yours with a more modern one, £70 per year provides you with a dedicated VCR with our receiver, and up to £100 will be paid for your old video.
So that all seems reasonable enough. Unfortunately, BMTV vastly overestimated the popularity of their service. They ordered 15,000 decoders from Philips. Not 1,500, 15,000. And that was just the start. Inside the first 2 years, they were expecting 50,000 subscribers. Working on that assumption, they went on to piss money straight up the wall for a year before the service screeched to a halt on the 31st of January 1990, by which time they had a total of 4,000 subscribers. Which might have been a perfectly healthy amount if they'd budgeted towards that kind of number in the first place, rather than 10 times as many. I'll return to the story later, but first I have to explain what this has to do with the hard sell, which is supposed to be about adverts. Well, what we're looking at today is one of the original videotapes sent in the mail. It's from 1988, shortly before the transition to the BBC, hence including that guide to receiving it, although I'm not sure precisely when. It's got programmes about the latest developments in ulcerative colitis, diagnosing vertigo, and a preview of forthcoming training programmes for GPs. Okay, but what the hell does this have to do with this programme? Simple. Between this disparate, if faintly carbolic-smelling programming, are commercial breaks. I'm not kidding, they're even introduced as such.
After the break, we'll be looking at the diagnosis of vertigo.
See that? There's even a break bumper. For some reason, the idea of a videotape magazine containing commercial breaks is really quite disturbing. What's more, they even ran on the scrambled BBC service, which must be the only time adverts ever ran on the corporation, albeit unwatchable. But of course these aren't ordinary commercials. You won't have seen any of these on ITV or Channel 4, or even Super Channel. Unless you're a GP, these adverts are not for you. They may not even be comprehensible to you.
If you're living with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis or active psoriatic arthritis, symptoms can sometimes hold you back.
In this country, it's illegal to advertise prescription-only medicines. To the consumer, anyway. It's been allowed in America since the 80s, of course, citing Reagan, as the Ask Your Doctor About genre.
Ask your doctor about Skyrizi.
Although they do have to include masses of small print. They aren't allowed to blast through it like a car advert on the radio anymore either.
Don't use if allergic. Serious allergic reactions, increased infections, or lower ability to fight them may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines.
But it's never been allowed in this country, because it's obviously stupid and kind of dangerous. But of course these that I'm about to show you aren't aimed at consumers. This is a subscription service for doctors, mostly GPs. These are drug adverts aimed straight at the medical professionals themselves to convince them to prescribe them. These are for people who know what all those baffling ingredients on the side of the box are and what they mean. And for the most part, they're proper adverts, using the established tropes and visual grammar of standard commercials that we all recognise from decades of the form. It makes for fascinating, faintly unsettling viewing. Strap in.
Nighttime is a time of danger for the stomach.
Diarrhea is like a storm raging inside you. You see what I mean already. It's still a medicine advert, using standard drug advert visual metaphors involving nature in all its forms. It's just that at the same time, and unlike a similar advert you see on the actual television, it uses hardcore terminology like this.
This is when acid, unbuffered by food, may damage the mucosa.
Not the mucosa! That's the stomach lining, incidentally. What did you think it was made of?
Axid 300 mg heals ulcers by controlling acid through the night, and then has the benefit of allowing a return to near normal gastric function during the following day.
I don't know why we needed to change from a male to a female voice there. Maybe just because of the shift from bad stormy night visuals to good acid-relieved daytime. It's a potential clue that these are not professionally made adverts from an agency. They're adverts made by people whose main understanding comes from watching them. A bit like me. I actually have no idea how these adverts were made and who by. BMTV is so thoroughly forgotten and obscure it's almost impossible to research anything about it. But it certainly seems to me that by and large these would have been made by small, maybe local video production companies, the sort that make training videos for office and factory jobs. Maybe even BMTV themselves on behalf of the pharmaceutical companies involved.
Axid 300 milligram lets ulcers heal by night and the stomach work by day.
This is one of the higher budgeted, classier numbers, with professional lighting and camera work and CGI logo. Switch out the technical language, like that snappy slogan at the end there, you could just about run on real television. As could this one.
Zantac 300. 1 tablet nightly for healing ulcers.
Zantac is a pretty well-known brand name now for over-the-counter heartburn tablets, but it started out, and still is, a commercial name for ranitidine, an acid killer for when it's bad enough to justify a prescription. The advert is simple, but in 1988 was probably pretty expensive, considering again that it's presumably not been made by an advertising agency. That's probably why it runs 3 or 4 times in this 90-minute tape. It's Mutual of Omaha. All joking aside, the raddled old film footage might well come from the same source. I promise this is going somewhere, it's not just an interlude.
Mastery of the airways. Yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Ventolin.
I said somewhere. I didn't say it would be particularly edifying. Ventolin, as the name obliquely suggests, is a brand of inhalers. So here's some presumably inexpensive footage of an eagle flapping about to try and invoke mastery of the airways. To be fair, that is a pretty good pun. Airways. I'm not sure it will particularly impress any doctors, though, or convince them to order Ventolin inhalers rather than whoever the hell the competitors are.
Not all little cowboys can handle cow's milk, and it's for them that Wyeth developed Y-Soy, a soya infant formula.
This one's relatively involved, actually. You got some stock footage, constructed sets, costumes, a backdrop, props, actors, well, one actor and a babby.
Because by making it as nutritionally complete as standard formulas, Y-Soy provides everything a growing baby needs before moving on to solids. That's why over the past 6 years, Y-Soy's helped thousands of little cowboys grow up to be big cowboys.
Honestly, if I had a lactose-intolerant babby, I'd buy this out of respect for the trouble they've taken. Particularly that wagon train shot with the tin in the foreground. All those scattered bits and pieces and the cloth hanging. It's pretty impressive for a 30-second spot which is never going to appear on television. Unscrambled television, anyway. But really, this next one is probably the most involved of any of these adverts. It's ridiculous, really.
Of all the joints in all the world, you came into mine.
A good dozen extras, some pretty impressive black and white cinematography, an elaborate set and costumes, proper synchronized dialogue even. They do know no one's going to see this, right?
You look as though you could use a stiff drink.
After taking these blue babies, you can forget the stiff.
Who knows who made this thing, but it might very well have been their only chance to make anything remotely like Casablanca. Whoever it was, they clearly had something resembling a budget. I've even got a feeling they hired N. Rytel to do the Bogart impression. Anyway, it's for arthritis pills, Fenbufen, known as Ledafen because they came from Lederley Laboratories.
Hey, boss, that's my tune.
Quite effective, apparently, although they also turned out to be quite toxic to the liver, so they were quietly withdrawn from most countries by 2010. You can still get them in Taiwan, apparently. Leatherfen seem to have been quite big on promotion within the industry in general, given not only this relatively lavish production, but also the Blue collection of classical music on tape, apparently available only to doctors via mail order. Don't let the patients listen to it, for God's sake. By contrast, most of the other adverts here are pretty simple, like this next one. Not quite as simple as it looks, mind. It takes time and care to get such well-lit close-ups of what is ultimately just the basic preparation of a soluble drug. Not that much, though. This could still be in and out of the studio in a day, with the possible exception of post-production to add the music and text.
Suffering the effects of dysmenorrhea and menorrhagia is no longer an unavoidable problem for today's women.
Oh man, finally! See, if this was television, they'd have to explain what those are. But this is specifically and solely for the eyes of GPs. For the record, it means menstrual cramps and heavy periods.
That strange, washed-out feeling that you just can't explain.
So they'd have to use carefully elliptical euphemisms for a publicly broadcast version so as not to damage the delicate sensibilities of the public.
Ponstan provides a non-hormonal answer by delivering a two-fold action against prostaglandins by inhibiting synthesis and blocking tissue response.
Great. I honestly feel like these would be quite refreshing for the manufacturers to be able to just say all these things in unvarnished clinical detail, especially given the specific conditions we're treating, instead of having to come up with simplistic diagrams and pouring blue liquid onto cotton wool and the like. Which isn't to say we're above using diagrams, they're just more involved.
In a recent study, the average pre-treatment blood loss for 22 patients with unexplained menorrhagia was reduced by 45% following 2 months' treatment by Ponstan.
See? Even uses the colour red to symbolise blood, because doctors can take it.
Available in a range of easy-to-take, low-cost presentations, Ponstan provides non-hormonal treatment for dysmenorrhea and menorrhagia.
There's a couple more, but there's very little to say about them.
Give your arthritis patients full 24-hour relief from pain and inflammation. Oravail 200, one a day for effective, well-tolerated relief in arthritis.
I think most of the budget for this one went on the voiceover, a veteran of real adverts. Might even be Peter Barkworth, I'm not sure. Apart from that, just film some footage of your elderly parents going about their daily business and fade to a Quantel-enhanced closing slide. Job's done. Unlike some of these drugs, Oravail is still around as a painkiller for osteo and rheumatoid arthritis.
There's some good news for women starting the pill. New Minulet from Wyeth, world leaders in oral contraception.
And finally, this one is clearly made by someone who's been put in front of a Quantel system and left to figure it out for themselves.
There's some good news for women starting the pill.
Oh, that's what this button does. Doesn't say what specifically is so great about this particular brand of the pill, but it does give the ingredients. Maybe that's enough for a GP to make a decision. I don't know. And that's the last commercial on the tape, not counting the equivalent of paid programming at the end. BMTV drowned in debt before the 90s were 6 weeks old. The BBC were undaunted, despite having lost $500,000 themselves on the whole thing. They proved, at least to themselves, that a scrambled subscription service was possible, as long as they handled it better than BMTV, not overestimating the potential customer base, for instance. So in 1992, they launched BBC Select. An overnight service consisting of for want of a better phrase, television programmes that weren't actually television programmes at all in a strange way, made for and sometimes by professionals in the fields of business, law, medicine again, and the civil service. Some were made by government departments themselves, like the Department of Social Security. Others were made as odd jobs by the likes of post-franchise Thames Television. Not all of them were even scrambled. The ones that were used a different system to the old BMTV broadcasts. Cable and Wireless used BBC Select to broadcast highlights of their AGM. The Royal College of Nursing had its own show. Long story short, it was a nice idea. It also lost the BBC 15 million quid to very little net gain. It was dead by 1995, and soon after that the Learning Zone launched instead. A strand of OU and schools programmes shown over the entire night and without any encryption, because it was far more trouble than it was worth. These weren't state secrets being transmitted, after all, just discussions and analysis of issues only of interest, more often than not only comprehensible, to medical professionals. It didn't need to be wobbly and crackly to convince people not to watch. But at least it included some genuinely fascinating advertising. Not just targeted, but set before a singular audience. And although they didn't necessarily need to, they could have just had white-coated doctors dryly explaining the details down the lens, they, for the most part, used the full language of advertising, albeit on tiny budgets. Nothing else like them exists now or then, for that matter. They are truly unique, and I, for one, am glad they've been preserved. This has been a Bob the Fish production, one of dozens you can watch right now for free on bobthefish.org.uk. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell, and join us on patreon.com/applemask to support further productions and gain fabulous exclusive content, like my ongoing history of the BBC, your day's viewing on a random day in history, even a few exclusive mini video essays. Plus the satisfaction of knowing that thanks to you, I get to eat regular meals. bobthefish.org.uk. We care because you do.